What if there was a one-stop shop for both internationalization and localization that worked across technologies to deliver a high-quality, world-class product? You go, Craig, what are you smoking, and are you going to share? As a matter of fact, we are going to share. So this evening, I have my co-presenter, Dimin Yan. We have come up with some great technologies we think are industry-leading at VMware and solve a great number of problems. We've open sourced this, and we're going to be talking about how we can share that with you, how it's available now, how we can collaborate. So we're going to talk about, we'll give you some history here. We're going to go through some phases. The two projects we're going to talk about in particular, one's called Singleton. The other is about internationalization static code analysis, so finding bugs, finding potential issues, even bugs earlier in the cycle, the development life cycle, the globalization development life cycle. And then we'll have some demos along the way, and we've got a video. It won't get too exciting, I don't think, but maybe the next slide will confirm that. All right, so we started some time ago, actually. This is part of Dimin's brainchild, my brainchild, a number of great engineers on our team, thinking about a problem that actually others, probably a number of you, have been thinking about in the audience. And that is, how do we do better? How do we quit reinventing the wheel? How do we use that time left over to innovate? How do we move further than we are now? How do we make it simpler? How do we make it easier? And can we do that with a balance of quality and cost and other things?
Not the balance, reduce the cost.
Well, yeah. Sometimes it's not free. We'll argue about that later. Next slide, please. Actually, I should let Dimin go because he has lots of history to share here.
All right. So I will start with what we went through before talking about the Singleton. This page for now basically show you what most of you familiar with when you start with your localization delivery, right? So everything is a menu from developers to program managers to outside vendors, how you deliver files hand to hand, right? So this is also for VMware at the very beginning, similar picture. Then, next. So once we figure out that, having the vendors to manage all the translations is not that good, right? So we want to kind of have a control of the translation memories and also manage who will be the vendors or other things. So then we started to bring our TMS system. I don't want to name it, but later on you will figure out what it is we use. And this probably is the first step of automation for the localization delivery process. And after we set up the whole thing, share the TMs or other things, there's still a lot of issues with delivering, like getting the quality source out, also getting the quality transition back to be used for the product, right? There's so many problematic issues through that TMS system result. So we start before we come in, the next step is also started to having some scripts to kind of sort of automate it, grab files from the product repositories, to go those things. So that started with the beginning of the GIM system, which is we call the Globalization Resource Manager. Essentially, all it does is you can click one by one. There's several tasks to be achieved by the GIM system. One, obviously, is how you can either based on the scheduling or based on demand to get English source from any product repository, right? There's so many VMware. There's so many products, so many repositories, different repositories. How we get that, right? And automatically, right? This is one task, and the second task is Also, to mitigate what TMS couldn't do, meaning is for translators, if we only with the TMS, usually is they get tons of different format of the files for translation, right? So we want to avoid that so that the translators can just deal with one format. So the second task for TMS is how to unify the source format for outside the translation, but when it comes back and consumed by the product itself, goes back to whatever the target format. As well as the encoding things so that from the translator point of view, they will have less issues, less problems. And the third one is by doing that, basically, we are introducing the parsers, how to parse the source format to a unified format. Then, when the translation comes back, we want to achieve is how we can have the high quality things, right? Eliminate like wrong encodings, missing translations, or totally mismatch or syntax issues. And this is another feature of the GIM. Of course, to monitor all those things, that we have a dashboard for that to manage vendors, manage jobs, or everything. So with this picture whole thing in place, I would say essentially from the product repository to get the source sent to the translation vendor, and when the translation comes back through the validation and the check back into the product and consumed by the product, it's kind of getting automated with this picture. Right? And we did that. And by this, we consider this kind of a phase one localization delivery phase. Next. But then, so, you know, the topic of this is total hands-off, right? But I think through the previous picture, there's still a lot of things to do, and we are still busy, right? Couple of things to call it out is when the product teams gets out more and more products and more developers comes in, there's no rule at all, right? Even you set up very good rule, say, hey, you need to put the source file in this particular location. No one listens to you. Even you keep talking about it and educating it, no way to achieve that, right? And from time to time, you always find issues to say, hey, how come this whole chunk of the UI is English, there's no translation, right? And then by debugging, certain amount of source files are missing, right? This is one issue. What else? And also there's, developers are genius, right? They keep creating a new format of the source files, and then we keep writing our own parsers to make sure we can consume it to be the unified files for translation, right? So this is also keep us busy. And the third one is translators also comes back with different format things. This is usual. The first bullet I want to say is I think majority of you guys also encounter is when there's a bug happening, right? On the UI, someone say, hey, this translation is not good. How do we debug? How do you know which source it is, and where is the translation button, right? Especially when the product is getting complicated and there's a bunch of components and similar strings or even same strings from different products. How do you know which one it is, right? Usually the technique is, pseudo build. But, you know, pseudo build is not that easy to generate, right? You need to understand the product build, not your translation itself. And then you mark certain things, and then you identify where it is and then fix it, right? So those are the issues related to globalization or localization delivery things. One more item here is, I think this is regarding the internationalization supports. This is also usual for everyone here, I believe. Say, for example, I put a table here for formatting, right? One specific formatting, different program language framework I can support will give you different results, right? And nowadays, there's probably any product have only one program language. If it is, you're lucky. Then you have one formatting, right? But mostly is backend Java, front end, or nowadays Go or something. And the front end is JavaScript. And you can see from here, the result is different. And most of the time, when you file a bug, no one's going to fix it because they say this is third party, right? Either Java framework issues or JavaScript issues. It's not my code. I cannot fix it, right? Defer, close, or won't fix, whatever, right? And that happens to us many, many times. So those are the issues still keep us kind of busy, which in a way is good, right? We're busy, have a work, but on the other hand, it's not good. It's me busy, right? Okay. So, next one. So with that, so we are kind of thinking about how we solve this issue, how we deal with that, right? So, and then come up with a couple of questions, basically, to start with. Say, well, what if the product itself can tell you, instead of you chasing the developers to say, hey, give me this file, give me that file, or put this file in this location, otherwise I cannot find it. What if the product itself can tell you right away, so I don't need to bother the developers, developer don't even need to tell me, right? This is the one thing. And the second, what if the source is keep the same, right? And then you don't need to write a parser. One parser load all things, right? So there's no problem with that. And the last one is there any like one-fits-all solution for IT-wise that any programming language will still have the same behavior, same result for different format of different things? That would be awesome, right? Because then the UI, whatever the language you are using, will be all the same formatting. So with that, we come up with this Singleton technology. Keep going. So here, if you, I want to point it out one thing. If you still remember previous slide, everything on the right side is the same. However, the left side was the repository, right? It's not a product, but now it's a product. I no longer deal with the repository to find where's the source to pick up, right? So I will deal with this Singleton technology will deal with the product itself. So that will solve our first question, right? So the product tell me what to translate, and that would translate it, right? So that's basically what Singleton is, and down the detail of it is. So for this one, I finished that. I will say some notes. So use this one as nowadays modern like microservice-based applications, right? If you still use the traditional way of doing ITM localization support, this is how it looks like, right? Let's say every service like Java service, Python service, Node.js service, whatever, your ITM supporter will rely on the Java framework, Python framework, blah, blah, and your localization resource bundle will be packaged together with it, right? So, and they show up on the UI. And then what looks like with Singleton, okay, the next step. Oh, so I think this is fine, we already covered. There's So this is what it looks like, Singleton. So basically, Singleton is utilized nowadays the web service technology and becomes a service to serve all the ITM localization. So essentially, I didn't show the slides, but you can imagine, basically, I remove the ITM and the localization layer from each product and put it into this service. And then all the product required formatting information, translation things will coming from this web service through the web service API. That's how it works, essentially, right? It's a very simple one. Next. But with this simple change, what it gives you is there's no longer a kind of like a bundled packaged with the product itself. And the one benefit of that is once you change certain things on Singleton itself, it will reflect to all the services layer. And you don't need to change the service itself. I will later on, there's a demo show you when you change something, let's say fix a translation or even adding a new language support, you don't even need to stop and start the application itself. There's no impact at all. Yeah, I think it should be fine. And one more thing I want to mention here is because it's web service based, it will be like a really one-fits-all solution, right? If you're using Java, you're Python, you're Node.js, you're still talking to the same service through Web Service API. And we do have the Web Service API bindings for each programming languages, and then you are dealing with the same thing. It's the same syntax, Web Service core syntax. Okay, go ahead. Oh, I crossed the line, even though there's no line. Yeah, this is a bit of detail about some people will do have, very first question will be, what is the performance, right? Is this going to be a hit? So by resolving that, we have several cache layers for that. So essentially, the goal is when you bring up the initialization of the application, you can call once to get all the translation. There's several APIs for that. One is one call for the whole product and then cache it, and later on will be the same as your local bundle, right? And the second, if you think it's okay and it's small enough, or you can say like, first you can have like even one string per call. It's fine, but no one does that, right? The second is, I would say the best is in between the product and the one string is we call it component-based, which is the component is the scope you can define. Any developer can define based on what you need. You can have like if one feature as a one component, or even one page as a one component. For example, you say my login page is a one component. The first time you start up, you just call and then get that page translation, and then when user log in, then behind the scene, you can you can call the other translation. So this way will solve your like multiple core issues, right? So this is one basically the technique to solve your caching situation. Okay, so with that, yeah, I will give you a demo. What I just said that. This is, I use just one simple application, web application, which behind the scene is the Java front end is Angular, right? So, yeah.
Angular?
No?
Good.
So, I'll start with, this is basically, as I mentioned, this is, even though I was focusing on delivering localization translation, but it also having a internalization support or different formats. And what we did is use CODI as our backend data, right? We don't want to create our own thing because CODI already have kind of a standard whole set of the locale data, right? So we just use that in the display, and this will guarantee whatever the language will give you the same result of the data format. So this is just to show you like a date format, number format, a currency, singular, plural thing.
So one of the importances of Unicode CLDR, CLDR is a part of Unicode. Every modern device now has ICU, Unicode's ICU, Unicode CLDR built in. When you turn your phone on, you see a date and time there, for example. That date and time is actually Unicode CLDR data. Now, if you decide to do something different, like Angular and JavaScript and Java, and the list goes on, then you're going to get some inconsistent results with all those modern devices. And, you know, maybe that's a small, minor bug if you just have one date format, but your product probably has more date formats, right? Maybe thousands of them, and that's death by cumulative results.
Yeah, so far this just to show you pick Chinese, how the Chinese formatting will be look like for that's back with the Singleton, the CODR. And the next one is I'm going to show you there's 3 use cases for localization perspective. One is I simulate when you introduce a new string on the UI and how you can on the fly do the translation things, right? So it starts with create this new string, and once the new string created and published, then the backend and the previous, if you still remember, there's a GRM and TMS, all the flow will kick off for the translation, even though we still use for the product-wise, we still mostly like human translations, not MT yet. So this is just to show you the backend Singleton server. It receives that string we just created. Okay, and the next step will be like GIM will also receive it, and then we'll kick off the translation process. So this is not that pretty GIM system UI-wise, but it works for now. Yeah, so this is the job, and this is the TMS. If you know that, familiar with that UI, you know what it is, but I don't want to name it. Okay. And when the translation comes back, is back to TMS, GIM, and also back here, we'll just tell you that the translation is back into the Singleton server. So this is the Swagger. If you are familiar with that, the URL, you will see this string becomes Chinese version translated. And then you can select the Chinese, sorry if you are not, and then boom, you will see the translation here, right? So there's no need, only thing is maybe just a refresh, or here is just we use this button to notify, otherwise you just refresh your page. You don't have to change or shut down your application, not even like repackaging your application. The second case is, it's a bit quick, but anyway, is assuming you have a bug fix, translation bug fix, right? So for that string, we say we want to add 2 more characters for that string. And this is how it does in that TMS workbench, and then comes back the same process, goes back to the UI. You will see it's similar. So this is, again, to show you it's there. First of all, on the Singleton service side, and then we'll be on the product side. So you will see that there's if it's Chinese, you know there's two more characters added. And the last case is to show you how on the fly you can also add in a new language support. So this is important, especially when a company, we also encountered this issue before, is in between the release, if there's any a deal comes in, say, I want to buy your product, however, you need to give me this particular language support, what if you don't have it, right? Normal cases, you back and having a patch, right, at least, or update the release in a few months, right? For this one, that triggers a lot of product, the repackaging things, everything's right. But for this is you can still the same on the fly, you can edit right away. You don't have to change anything for the product itself. So this is where we added the Portuguese, right? From the right side is again you just the drop down language selection, you will get it. I think that's the demo. For a sample application. And the next one is there's just to show you there's 2 snapshots, which actually today this Singleton technology is already integrated with our official products we released to the customers. And this is probably VMC. I don't know what the official name of it.
VMware Cloud.
Yeah, VMware Cloud on AWS, basically, right? So this is the SaaS service we provide to the customers, and in the backend, this is Singleton is running in the AWS environment to support this ITN localization. I think this.
So a couple of things here, just to add. We at VMware and probably a few of your companies, we love to talk about store, compute, network, and so we have here compute, we have storage, we have networking. These are measured formats, and in the previous demo, the list of tabs across the top of all those formats was going off the board there. We didn't have room to fit measure format in there, but there's support for that too. And not to be bashing. And a shameless plug here, not to be bashing other programming languages and frameworks and technologies, and that they are doing some disparate things here, but Tex and I, shameless plug, have created a website. We did this actually a while back, and we analyzed a lot of the different JavaScript libraries and frameworks that were out there in the industry and how well or not how well they supported formats, internationalization. This website is called jsi18n.com. You can go there and check that out. Go to /tests/MISC, and I've added some things about how well Java is doing, how well Moment is doing, how well Angular is doing. There are some noticeable improvements in these technologies, but we've bridged that gap in supplying now a standardized, consistent solution across the board.
Okay, I think, yeah. So this is a page. This is the second page. Just show you the
more date formats,
the dates,
sorting
dates for that. Yeah. Later on, I can also show you the real one. This is a snapshot, but we can go to that website. I have the account. I can log in. Can show you if you want. So with that, I will hand over to.
We can talk about the next phase.
The next phase.
The next phase. So this was actually the previous to next phase, because this looks familiar probably to some. You know, it's heavy loaded at the back end here with lots of testing. We don't do our testing until too late. There's not enough time to fix bugs right, and you get a less than world-class product at the end of that. It's missing the quality you might like. You spent a lot of time trying to get some quality in there, but you ran out of time at the same in the same go, and you can do better. So what does that next slide look like? Wouldn't it be better if it was something like this? Wouldn't it be better if earlier in that globalization development life cycle, you found problems, you fixed problems, they never showed up in testing. You don't need as many testing resources. They can be redirected now to help with this or other tasks. And best of all, hopefully, your customers aren't going to see these problems. And you've spent your time ideally in a better manner. And so one of the things that the industry uses a good bit, you're probably familiar with a tool called lint, is one of the more famous static code analysis tools. This is a tool that runs on code, and lint generically looks for all sorts of problems with your code. It might be doing some things that are dangerous over here. Oh my God, look what your code is doing over here. Okay, it doesn't quite panic that much, but it does tell you some informative things about what's going on before you've even gotten to testing. So it's like pre-testing, if you will. Static code analysis tools, however, in the marketplace, if you go out there and you look at this, you'll see that none of them have very good support for anything internationalization. And they don't know how to spell localization, so don't even go there. We wanted to add to that. And so about the same time he was starting the Singleton thing, I was starting to think about how we know these programming languages. We know how to do internationalization well with these programming languages. Why can't we get the tools to make sure that's really going on? And let's move that earlier in the cycle so we don't have all these problems later that we can't fix because we're running out of time. And so static code analysis tools have a number of advantages. You know, one, your QA folks aren't catching all the bugs anyway. All right. If you're to believe what Perforce, this is a popular, it's a company that makes some very popular source code control tools. Perforce has a great video about static code analysis tools and their value. And they argue that QA only finds 1 in 3 bugs. So even if you're finding bugs in the last minute, and even if you got all of those fixed, your product's only 33% better, if that, right? So what if, again, we move that earlier in the cycle? What if we can make it more accurate? So there's actually a number of static code analysis tools that are out there that can produce that greater accuracy, and we should probably go to the next slide and take a look at that. All right, well, suffice it to say that static code analysis tools, we can go back a slide. I'll come to this in just a minute. Static code analysis tools suffer from one problem. Okay, maybe more, but one significant problem, and that is they produce false positives. So you get this big, long report of potential issues. Maybe they're bugs, maybe they're not bugs. And what if you could reduce that and go, no, these are the real problems you need to worry about. And in fact, these are the high priority ones. And so we added some intelligence to the tools to do those kinds of things. And let's take a look at that tool. We chose an open source platform called SonarQube. They make another one of these, not unlike lint. They make another one of these static code analysis tools. And we built upon that internationalization rules to go look for internationalization issues. All right, so next slide, please. And it has we talked about dashboards earlier, and there's lots of dashboards so that management can love this stuff and see what you're doing and get a better idea about scope and where resources are needed and what that's going to cost and how to deliver that product on time with good quality. And we talked about cost and quality balance there. Anyway, great dashboard, and it's got this functionality built in that we can get, I'm going to call them hyper-accurate results, even more accurate than your average static code analysis tool, because it's got some very specific things built into it that gets you more context to answer the question, is that a real problem or not? All right, let's go just a little further. And so we built these rules, and we've made them available through open source now as part of SonarQube, actually as a plugin to SonarQube. So very easily, you could go out on the web, and I've got a demo at the end if we don't run out of time here. And I can show you how you can download this. You can go, you run this up, fire SonarQube up. You log in, you go to their marketplace, they call it, which has all these plugins. And it has a plugin for the Java internationalization rules. We're working on some other internationalization rules for other programming languages. You enable that, and then you run that on your source code, whatever that might be, Java source code, of course, because these are Java rules, and it will help you find internationalization problems. What kind of problems, you ask? That's a great question. These kind of problems. And so I have a longer set of problems that you could possibly find in any code. You know, some of those, really, who cares? Some of those are going to bubble up, though, and they're going to produce some of the worst problems we know in internationalization, and it starts with characters, right? Characters, text, I/O. There's a number of things in the Java language where programmers may or may not know that they've gotten themselves into trouble, and we can help them look now to find out whether they're really in trouble or not. Of course, locales are the next step, and then you've got a whole bunch of locale-sensitive operations like we just looked at with dates and times and numbers and currencies, and the list goes on, sorting and more. And so we've created this basic set. Particularly, we looked at bugs that happen at our company and probably your company that are most important, and we worked on those rules first. Like I said, we've got some more rules that we're working on, but these typically, and the I/O ones in particular, they're going to cause you, if you've corrupted characters or if you've lost them, data loss, data corruption, any company you work for, that's a P0 bug. You don't want those. So how do you eliminate that? Well, here's one way. And again, I'm going to call it hyper-accurate. Maybe I'm going to go as far as saying hyper-focused. Here's an example. Can you even read that from the back? Anyway, so Java has an API that says, take some bytes, interpret those bytes. Okay, how are you going to interpret those? Well, if you don't use the right encoding to interpret them, you're going to get garbage. We can look to see if we're interpreting those with the right encoding, though, and you can actually tell the static code analysis tools, hey, look for this. This is going to be an issue, potentially. So in this case, that call in Java is called getBytes, and if you don't hand it the right encoding, things will go wrong. And it's a little more, there's a little more nuance to it than that, but this gets you started. Now notice we're not just doing a regular expression here going, oh, look for getBytes. Okay, well, tell me some more information. I need more context, Is it the getBytes that has the encoding? Is that the right encoding? How do you know that? Is there some more context you can look at to see that this is right or not? And it turns out that actually, yes, there is more context, and yes, you can look at that. And so we've helped train some of the eye of the static code analysis tools, if you will. We've helped train that eye to look for these kind of issues, and are pretty successful at finding them. with a good bit of accuracy. When you download this plugin, it tells you there's actually some, we didn't have a whole lot of time, but we actually wrote some documentation. I know that's novel with production of software, but we wrote some doc. It's not great. We're working on improving that. In fact, I just got doc resources, professional resources, to improve upon this. But it tells you it tells you about the rules. It tells you about what kind of problems you should be looking for. It tells you how the static code tools, analysis tools are looking for it, and tells you what kind of things are good and what kind of things are bad, and what that means to you and a developer who may need to go back and fix that code and how to do so. How are we doing on time? We're
Pretty good.
We're okay. So we're done. No, just kidding. There's always more work to do, right? Or we'd be out of a job and we wouldn't be talking to you right here. There is this journey. So we've got a couple great tools that we just presented, and there's more tools. You saw a little about GRM. There's some other pieces that are in play there to try and improve not just the internationalization, but the localization as well. And this overall globalization lifecycle process and that flow. Now it's a matter of connecting all these dots, if you will, and making it so this is that truly that one-stop shop. My paradigm when I was hired a few years back at VMware is that's just a button, globalize it already, done. And of course we're all out of jobs, but no, our jobs now, it transitions into something else because we're training the machines, or we're telling it what rules to follow, or we're figuring out what the best machine translations to put in are, right? But there's these pieces that go together, and the pieces are still coming together, and we're still releasing some of these to open source, and there's more to come. Okay, maybe there's only a couple more slides to come. All right, well, faster, better, cheaper. None of us have ever heard that before,
well, that's
right?
the goal, right?
But we threw in community. That's a good thing, right? And that's the open source part. Here are the links to those open source projects. So VMware Singleton. I don't know that you really need to go into the source for the SonarQube checks. It's part of a plugin now that you just say go. But there they are. They're in the slides. They're captured on live video. And
yes,
we would encourage you all to help us not reinvent the wheel and collaborate.
Yes.
Yes.
And add one more thing is, for now, this tool like Singleton and the static analysis has been open sourced, but other tools, as I just showed you, on the pipeline to be open source. Everything we want to be open sourced so that everyone sitting here can be benefit for that. And also, as Craig said, let's work together to make this better, to solve all our headaches. Thank you. Thank you.
Joe, do we have time for a demo if folks want it, or should we go straight to questions? Or Demo. Questions. Demo. Okay, demo.
So you need to
maybe you can answer questions while I'm running up the demo here.
Sure. If I got questions.
I'll take questions.
So thank you, first of all. So a question about working across the different products to make sure that you can do things like deploy locale through Singleton. Mm-hmm. How was the effort on getting different products to collaborate and build that infrastructure? Is this something that a team will work with different products so that there is a microservice layer basically that can work with all of them, or they had to figure out themselves?
So there's a couple of things needs to be done. It also depends on what product it is. If it's on-prem products, mostly we need to work with that particular product teams. But for SaaS, as one of the screenshot indicated, essentially is we set up Singleton service in the SaaS environment, and all the services will benefit from that through the API gateway.
So when he says on-prem, that's standalone, and when he says SaaS, that's web-based applications.
Well, speaking of that, I will add one more
not be
thing just to clarify. I forgot to mention that on today's slides, the architecture I use as a sample is the like microservice-based applications. However, this technology can work for any applications, even the traditional application can be done.
I guess another shameless plug here. So far we've released only JavaScript rules for the SonarQube static code analysis, but we have JavaScript already made up. We're in the process of releasing that. We have Python rules. We're working on C and C++ rules. And then we're going to actually, one of our goals this year is to work on some Singleton rules so then you can make sure that Singleton is being used correctly, right, in your code. And you can do that earlier, and QA doesn't have to figure out, is it Java, is it Singleton, is it what is it? And so, more work is going on with that, as Dimin hinted. More work is going on with Singleton, and so there are some exciting things developing here, in addition to these other tools that we have in the suite that are going to be released as open source. Yes.
How about
you have the mic?
How about, and I'll give it away. How about human effort? So what is, how big of a team has actually worked on this, and how does it span over different teams?
You mean the integrate Singleton?
Yeah.
So it's very much similar to if you implement with any ITN. Well, actually, you don't have to be ITN, right? So to use for library, any kind of library. So as I mentioned, right, so we Singleton has two parts. One is the service side, and also the client side. Client side is you can consider as a library or programming binding to support web service call to the Singleton service side, right, to get the translation, to get the formatting things. So from the development side, what they really need to do is to import this client library into their product code as any general library. And also the underlying library core is, each API core is the web service call, general web service call. It's just specific, like get translation or get formatting those names. That's just.
Was that actually your question, or was it more how big was his team that came up with Singleton to begin with?
Yeah. So you answered in a way by saying that actually the different teams probably have to deploy it. So it's a service and they have to build it. So, but in terms of building it,
they come up with this Singleton service. I mean the team efforts.
And also how you get to get all the different products to work.
That's a great
one, right?
That's the key question. I saw this.
You're welcome.
You're gonna have this one first. But anyway, so for the efforts of come up with this Singleton technology, actually we started with only one person, right? One developer having this idea to have a concept and a prototype. But once the prototype is there, then yes, we expand, and then people sees the value, and then expand to becomes product level of the service. And the next is, yes, of course, we need to go to the product team, say, hey, this is the one good for you, right? And we need to show them, right? One technique is to show them if you use, what's the current issues you're having, right? One is your developers receive so many issues, the bad quality bugs you need to fix. And the second thing is every time you moving on to the new technology, your learning curve of learning a new technology, and as well as if there's anything missing from the new technology ITN support, then you have to add it yourself, right? With this one, basically is on-the-shelf stuff. You can just go ahead and use it as ready to use, ready to integrate. And also, as part of this presentation, you see the value of how easily to getting the translation on the fly, right? Those are good. And the product managers like it, right? Because when they get the deal, they say, you guys know, right? give me this translation right away. I need it right away because the deal is there, right? But usually say, no way, right? A few months back, right? But with this, it's on the fly. They don't even need to bother the product team even after the release. For every product team, once they release, they move on to the new features, right? If you're asking them to go back, having a patch itself is difficult. So those kind of from the business perspective and also from the efficiency as well as how easy to quickly deliver the translation will convince them. So that's one by one we'll get to it.
Really what happened is Dimin we put ourselves out of a job for globalization, right? So now we have to put on a new hat. That hat is called sales. And we think that globalization should sell itself, but it doesn't, right? Yeah. So Dimin did actually a great job of selling it to all the teams. Actually, some of the teams were asking for this, okay? So those were easy sales. Other teams, were like a little skeptical, but as you start building the technology and its results become evident that these are good results, these are quality results, we can do something with this, it starts to sell itself, and then it just snowballs from there.
Yeah, speaking of that, I can say is the efforts I put to sell or to talk to the product team, whether it's product manager or the top management or the developers, architects, spend more time than I have this happening. So that's a level. But on the other hand, once you get one product, you will get the second, get third. It's easy because the second one will always say, who is the first? I don't want to be the first, right? So yeah. But once we get one, yes, it's much easier. Okay. Go ahead.
And there's
other questions. 3 questions on the web. All right.
The demo you showed, is that posted on your Git as well? The demo video?
I'm sorry?
The demo video, is that posted in the Git as well?
Sorry, I didn't hear. The
demo video you showed. Yeah. Is that in the Git as well so we can go watch it again?
In the Git repository, it actually has a sample app, but not this exactly the same one. But when you get to the Singleton open source GitHub location, it has all the sample code, the documentation, everything's there, and you can just build it the right way. All the instructions, how to build, how to use all those APIs. It has much more than this. Yeah.
Okay, so Dimin, we have a couple questions here.
Go ahead.
The first question is, apart from giving these tools, putting them into developers' hands, what else do you have to do on the journey to promote these solutions for wider adoption across your product teams? What do we have to do? Other than, giving them the tools and saying, oh, look, this is how well they work. And
well, as I just said, right, you have to basically let them know what's in it for them, right? Mostly they will say, what's in it for me, right? I don't want to do, and no one wants to do any extra work, right? So from business-wise, from developer-wise, right? So you have to, based on an audience, to say different words, right? When you talk to the product managers, you deal with business side of the benefits. For the developers who will basically say how easy it is, right? And actually it is, right? Based on what you saw, essentially the developers, and also it's our goal for developers going forward, they can forget about IT and localization, which is not their area. They are not interested. They are more interested in the cool new features, right? And with this, they just implement API. That's it, right? And the beautiful things is once you move on, right? This is often happening. Move on to the new technology. Today is a goal. Tomorrow is something else. They don't need to have this learning curve anymore, right? They will always do the same thing. Import the library and call the same function. It will get to everything for IT and localization support, which is they love, right? So that's it. So basically.
And your mic's doing all kinds of crazy things.
I forgot what I did.
Anyway.
But those are the main things. The key is really to, based on what audience you're going to go, and talk to the language they understand.
Okay, one other question, and this one's probably for me. It says, with the IETN checker, the static code analysis, tools there. Why doesn't it include tests for hard-coded strings, concatenation, a layout, and what else was there on here? Any plan to do that? Yes, there is. Actually, we've done that. It's not released yet. It will be in one of the next releases. It is a great question, though, because hard-coded strings and layout actually represent some of the largest number of bugs we get. Not always the highest priority, but a large number. And actually, it's not only the static code analysis tools that help us solve that problem. The static code analysis tools are doing some hard-coded text checking. We've got some other technology we're throwing at that, and we'll hope that's a future talk. We can't share too much right now. For the layout, though, back to Demin's team, they've created a tool called UI Validator. Can I share that name? I can probably share the name. Again, we're open sourcing that. That's going to be probably in the same time frame, maybe as the GRM open source release.
Yeah.
So we have something to check layout as well.
So this is a tool that you can. This is for developers, right? Not for us. Is when they design and implement a nice English UI, they always forget how long the other language would be, right? The heights are different, and then when the translation comes back, tons of bugs there, right? So this tool is really to, at the early stage when they develop, they will detect using either the machine translations or pseudocode, but nowadays I think machine translation is much more precise, mimic to the real translations, even though the content itself is not that good. But for that layout purposes, it will really tells you where you are overlapping, where you cut it off, so that they know it right away and fix it right away. So even without waiting for the translation comes in.
And a question for both of us, another question on the line here. Sorry, guys, do you have a question before I get to that? Any questions from the audience here? Question in the back. And then I'll get to the online question and the online questions for both of us.
Okay.
Or just yell at us.
No, it's
I'm used to it.
It's basically two questions. One is on the Singleton oriented stuff. You guys have Java, Angular, and something else, if I recall correctly, right?
Yes.
Language that you support.
So we have.
Are you guys expanding this anytime soon? Like, can we expect more things to come?
I like this question. Why I tell you, but let me answer your question first. What we have today is Java, JavaScript or flavors of JavaScript, and Go. We are in the process of getting that out of the door, and C# client as well. So now I come to you. Why I like your question is because, as I said, we like you guys to work with us together to contribute. This is the time, right? If you have, for example, we don't have the C# client, the C++ client yet, but bunch of like not really modern, but old enterprise applications are still written in C++ a lot, and we got a lot of questions when you have that client. And my question always typically say, can you contribute to that, right?
Cool.
So
And
that's my answer.
We should add that we've made it so that you can contribute fairly easily, that you can come up with these bindings. So if you want one for Swift, if you want one for Objective-C, if you want one for Android Java, if you want one for, pick your programming language or framework. It's relatively easy to produce. I'm going to let him speak more to this on that relatively. I'm making it probably easier than it sounds, but it's gotten some thought. It's been built in so that you could add these new, we call them bindings for another programming language technology. And it is a short reach of, depending on your team, weeks, not months, to produce that for a new programming language. And something will come around the corner that, is more popular than Go, or, is the next flavor that we need to be working on anyway. And yes, we can do that.
Great. That's great. And then the second question was, how do you guys envision this evolving from now on? Like, so one part is, okay, you want contributions for new bindings and stuff like that. Is there something else that's on the roadmap that you guys are thinking of, or what's coming for Singleton?
No, we're done.
Done?
There's more, of course.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things, right? First of all, from adoption point of view, currently not all the VMware products are there using the Singleton yet, but we are kind of in the middle of it. So one target is really to have all the VMware products across the board to use this one so that all VMware has the same IT and localization framework and will generate good qualities, right? And secondly is also for this open source projects to be more like outside of VMware, collaborate together. This becomes a big one. This is the one target. The second target is basically that the page, the pie things mentioned about it. There's not just a GIM, not just Singleton. The analysis too. We have tons of other things, including this. Layout detections. One of the goal also is put all those pieces together to be we consider is end-to-end globalization solution for that. So that's, I wouldn't say this is far long goal, but this is.
I see. But those are other components that you guys would like to release. Yeah.
Yes.
But the Singleton, you guys consider this mature enough that's production ready?
Yes.
You guys are already using production and everything?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we have a production for one is the SaaS I showed, and also the on-prem products. So we support both on-prem, the SaaS, or hybrid.
Have you guys thought about the idea of, as you are in the code of the product itself, ways to capture eventually more context, anything that can help with the translation itself?
I didn't mention, and part of that UI validator is we will going to provide a in-context like online editor things, which will really capture what's going on the product side. You can just go in that editor and based on the product scenario and translate for that. Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
And along the lines of your question, that was Singleton, and again, some of the things that I talked about that we're going to be doing as a part, more programming languages, right? For both Singleton and for static code analysis, more checks. And there was a question online. Let me just answer it right now. We talked a little about mobile, but we have a mobile part of the VMware business, and that's becoming a lot more popular. We're looking at how to use that with Singleton. We're looking at how to do static code analysis checks on Swift, on Android, on Windows Mobile, and it's not a huge market, but and there's probably some others out there, and so we're looking to evolve that as well. You saw that only a small subset of rules had been added so far. That's going to be increasing. One of the things that should have been glaring to folks, I'm surprised, but what about emoji? What about the extra Unicode characters there that break all my software as soon as I try and test an emoji? And nobody has emoji in their products, right? They're naming data centers. We're in the software virtualization realm, okay? And you wouldn't think there's much in the way of emoji that's going to pass back and forth there. Need to be, let's make emoji smaller and virtualize it and really pack more emoji into the punch or something. I don't know how you'd virtualize emoji, but go on. There are checks that you can do in static code analysis, though, because we know those characters, the supplementary characters in Unicode, do some extra breaking of our software. And again, we're back to data corruption, data loss, and even security problems come out of that. In case you haven't been reading some of the news about, my emoji broke my phone. Great, it's never going to work again. We're adding some things like that. There's actually a whole number of checks, and this is where some of that compiler-based static code analysis really brings to value that accuracy, because you can say, not only this API that worked on general characters, but this one that works on supplementary characters that has a special signature, that needs these special parameters or returns a special type, or is called by this certain thing, or has this context around it, and then you've got accurate.
You say there's an online question for me?
That was a question.
Oh, that was.
I think that's our last question. Oh, hey, wait, there's more.
Here,
Do we have time?
Here's another question. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry, actually, I have several questions.
Okay.
I didn't quite follow the singleton part.
Mhm.
So let me summarize my understanding. Does the singleton have three capabilities? One is trigger and publish translation. Well, trigger translation, get the translation done, and one is internationalization. Basically, you have the internationalization library in your service for the product to call. And then the third one is the publishing to dynamically downloading the strings from the server to your microservice, the client. Is that the three
Yeah, I
capabilities?
think you basically got it. One is the ITN support for those formatting things, and the second, your first and the third is basically is how you automatically getting the source for translation, and then how you return the translation on the fly for the product itself
Right.
without impacting the product itself.
So what is, maybe I'm getting into too much detail, what is the part of the client that's doing and then what part is the service is doing? Because the service is doing the internationalization library, I suppose. The client part is really for the downloading of the string. Is that correct?
Right. So service side, essentially, all the translations at the beginning sits on the service side. There's no more translation at the product side, right? And as I said, it also has ITN-related information data there, right, backed by the CODR. The client side, a couple of things. The first one, of course, is how it connects with the service and the talk and the get translation things, right? This is one important feature. And the second feature is also the client side provides the cache mechanism so that once you get the translation, you don't need to have a second call unless there's updates from the server side. And the third one is, I think we are all in this industry long enough, right? So another feature from the client side is a fallback mechanism, which if the translation is not there, you don't want to be blank for your UI, right? So you pick your source language to fallback, and that also be achieved by the client side. So those are the major features from the client side and what is the server side.
And to expand the different programming language support, you need to add that to both the client library and the service side.
Service, no, just one service for everybody. But the client side, you have to per language client library. It's called bindings for them.
What I meant is not the service everybody is calling, the service that you're providing, you need to expand that.
Yeah. I mean, the translation for different services, products, yes. So, yeah. So, for example, for SaaS services, we support the multiple services at the same time. Then the SaaS version of the Singleton service will have all the translation for all those products. But on-prem, it depends on how many products are deployed in that on-prem environment. We will have only those translations.
I have actually more questions, but I think I'm maybe running over. Like the translation part in the demo, is that string by string translation, or you're just showing it, but you actually are capable of sending the entire set of strings of that part?
You can send based on the string based or file based. It supports both. Because some people are still in the habit of creating English versions of resource bundle, so we can take that as well.
And I remember. Okay, I think I will shut out.
Maybe come back. Let's alternate.
Go ahead.
So once you found the issues, how do you communicate that to the development teams, and then how do you make sure that it is getting implemented? Because that's the hardest part.
For Singleton,
once you found
for the static analysis.
Both basically. I mean, how do you communicate any issues you found with your tools? Is there any dashboard you maintain, or how do you impose that? Because just creating a dashboard is not going to solve the problem.
So you saw some of the dashboarding with SonarQube. The dev teams have that as well as the globalization team, and yes, they're looking at that, and they're able to click on that easily to get the managers can click on it and go, oh, there's our scope. And the developers can click on it and go, okay, what line of code am I looking at? Oh, I need to fix this line. And they can get right there. There's more dashboarding that we have for Singleton, and there's some larger dashboarding we have as a team, and we work across all the products in VMware. So, we're monitoring and dashboarding in a number of places and communicating with our stakeholders, and making sure there's that two-way. And managers like looking at a little different things than developers like looking at. So, we have to take into account the different personas that we're communicating with, and there are different means that are used for that.
Can you share some numbers about how much success you got with this after implementing the tool? What percentage of bugs got reduced? What was the ROI on implementation this?
For static code analysis or for Singleton? I'll speak to static code analysis, and he has a bunch of running products, as he mentioned, that are in production right now that you can go or buy or look at online. And you should talk about, I'm going to actually talk about it, and he can follow on. So if you go to code.vmware.com, or you go to docs.vmware.com, or you go to one of our flagship cloud.vmware.com, you can see Singleton running. You can change languages. You can see it change on the fly. You should be able to see various formatting and other things, in that locale. The static code analysis tools are not something you necessarily see at production time, right? Because you're trying to eliminate problems that would otherwise show up at production time. So the results that we're seeing there, we actually see earlier in, how many issues were raised, how many of those were actually true positives. There is a little triage that needs to go on there. How many of those got fixed by development? How many of those may need an errata, or we still need to worry about how many of those are now in a backlog for some other sprint or release process. And we have that information. And some of the rules, it really varies by product. Some products have more rule violations than others. Some have just certain ones. A lot of them have that hard-coded text one that we need to release, yes. They have that coming up, and probably more than any other issue in the static code analysis. So, boom. We were able to address hard-coded text. Hey, use Singleton, by the way. It'll make your translation easier. Build that in, and filter one to the other, and done. A little checking thereafter, and your translations are good, and you deliver high-quality product, and you do it quicker. There's a question on the web as well. One last one.
May I have
how are we doing on time?
Regarding, linked to your question. So you're talking about the SonarQube, which is the static,
analysis.
The source analysis. But my question is, after you get the translation, so for example, I'm a developer. I use Singleton and also the SonarQube to do my implementation, get the translation. And later on, after I get translation, I want to do unit tests and integration tests. So how this team can help myself to do those kind of testing? Is it automation, or is something I have to do by myself, or is there any IQE team can help me to figure out whether there are any internationalization, localization related issue?
Good question. So from Singleton point of view, so we have internal instance up and running, right? So for every developers, whenever they implement or develop a new features or new line of code, they can have a unit testing, and by connecting with our Singleton service, or they can even install and set up in their local system. And what Singleton does is, if there's no translation, you can pick and choose, say, how about give me the pseudo, or give me the machine translation result, so that I know my code is good, right? So that's usually the developer needs to know, and that Singleton will give you, right? Before the translation is ready, pseudo is there, MT result is there. So there's a switch you can kind of set up how you do it.
Okay, and also you mentioned that you will provide some tools to the developer to catch up some, for example, truncation issue, yes, layout issue, and so on. Mm-hmm. And those tools can be run automatically. Is that correct?
So currently, it's not automatically, but it's basically for the developers. This is the browser plugin. So essentially, once the developer have their local browsers, the Chrome browsers, to install that one, every time you check your UI, you will get to that right away.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure. But,
Okay.
but just want to add one more thing, though. We are in the process of putting all those into the CI/CD pipeline, so that end of the day, actually, my goal, maybe not everyone agrees, is if certain things are happening, those code won't be checked in. It's rejected. Developer won't like it, but good for us, right?
And there's some ways to balance that too. I mean, there's ways that you can, and through static code analysis, for example, you can give some hints to the developer. Hey, if you're going this direction, you may have some problems with check-in, and maybe you should try this other thing that we know will work. Or there's ways to make the tools work together to set yourself up for success there. We had a question online, and that was, and I think we've addressed some of this, and that it was, who's using these tools in production? Well, we are. Beyond that, unfortunately, with SonarQube, I cannot track who uses the plugin or not. And I've asked SonarQube, and I think that, interestingly enough, you can track those things with, who's downloading it from GitHub, for example, but you can't do that with SonarQube, so I don't have an answer for that. We have a little more, because Singleton, however, is on GitHub. You can actually track those statistics, and maybe you can speak more about who that is.
So for Singleton, the user obviously is the developers, product developers. So they are the ones to implement the client into their code, and to get ITN and the localization ready for that.
Do you have people outside of VMware though downloading Singleton, and
there are
anybody using it in production yet?
That I don't have the knowledge.
And that one's kind of hard for us to tell.
It's hard to track.
We can tell if you downloaded it. Are you using it? Are you using it in production?
Right. So that's hard to track unless they tell me. Right.
Yeah.
But for GRM system, I mentioned that this is our globalization internal tool for delivering translation. So this is our tool, internal tool. And as for the UI validator, I mentioned those are for product the UI developers.
And maybe back to questions here. One or two more? All right, one or two more. It's download SonarQube. You can run it yourself. There's very easy instructions. It's easy to do. I sometimes shy away from, you've got to build the whole Linux thing. No. You just download it, run a couple steps. You're up and running like that. Yep. Last one of two.
So interesting and so good. The Singleton that you posted on Git, does that mean you guys provide the translation service as well as the internationalization service? I don't think the translation will work because it relies on your own, translation management system and hooking up with your vendors and stuff.
So for Singleton, it only provides internationalization support and the way how you localize it. But translation is not part of its service. It's part of the GRM PMS service. It's the consumer. It will get the final version of the translation as a part of the service itself to feed to the product.
Right, but the internationalization part, let's say formatter, does that mean you allow anybody to call your service to get a formatter?
Allow means?
I mean, we can call we can.
Oh, you don't have to call mine, right? You can call mine, but
it becomes yours, and yes, you can call it.
You can set up your own Singleton service at your location, and then you can call it and then get ITN support. You don't have to call mine. Of course, you can call mine, and I can open up without authentication.
Really?
Danger, Will Robinson.
It is dangerous, but I know who you are, so I can open it up. But otherwise, no.
Don't tell our security guys you just said that.
Okay.
And you, actually, it's a good question. You've reminded me that there is actually there are people beyond VMware using this in production, and one of them is our larger company is Dell Technologies, so Dell and EMC, and Dell and EMC are looking to contribute back. One of the things they're looking to contribute back is Singleton uses a particular translation service, but they've made it so that you can use other translation services, right? And plug that in, and coincidentally, Dell and EMC use a different one and are going to make that plug-in, and so that hopefully will be available soon.
Hopefully it's last for the day. What about what's humans' role in here, in this whole process? Do you still need the engineer? Do you still need the program management? What kind of things do they need to do in this whole process?
Yeah.
And do you need to assign them per product?
Correct. So I will go the backwards, right? So the program manager, let's say what we have is a localization program managers. We still have them. What their main job is to communicate with the product team, when's the release or those release type of scheduling things, as well as monitoring and managing the vendors when the transition comes back. But in terms of delivering side, we don't need anyone to be there. It's streamlined, right? Engineers, of course, like me, it's still there because we still have a bunch of things to do, right? Not done yet, right? So still enhancement, other things like a new client needs to develop for Singleton as well as for, as I mentioned, the end-to-end global solutions. Too busy at the moment, but better, I would say.
Are you still taking questions?
I don't know, are we still taking questions?
That was it.
Ask the guys in back.
Wait, the Merle gets the last question, so we're not done. All right, go ahead.
Well, actually, as a follow-up to Lila's question, at what point or who does the who connects your service with the vendors, who does the management of where the translation goes? Any issues with that? Does it happen completely outside your tool, or is it?
So we, in terms of a translation service-wise, we use external vendors, right? So and that will, if you still remember that chart still goes through TMS, then our gem system goes to Singleton, right? So that's still typical.
And the addition of new, for instance, if you decide to add a new locale, that happens at which level? Does it happen at the product level and gets propagated to yours?
Of course, the request is coming from the product. Right? Mostly, like either release manager of the product or the product manager will say, "Hey, I want adding a new language." Then our localization program manager, for example, will get that request and kick off that translation process.
So it still happens outside the. Okay.
Oh yeah. Humans still need it.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we're not going to hear from Merle, I guess we're done. This is a first, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Everybody stayed and they were wrapped, so we're good. Thank you.
Thanks.